Vivek, I think maybe what we should do is, I don't want to keep, Leroy and Sandeep waiting for too long. As and when the panelists, others join in, we'll pull them into the discussion. But maybe we should start the discussion formally with Leroy and Sandeep since they're there. And would you like to say a few words before that?
Sure. Let me get started. Gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in this virtual roundtable on applied AI for East African insurance companies. I'm Vivek Manige, the CEO of Accelerate Software. My colleagues have had the pleasure of interacting with you in the past, and now the pleasure is mine. Accelerate Software has been in financial services software area for 19 years, of which 11 have been mainly in the insurance domain. We're proud to say that we do not consider ourselves a software vendor, but as a technology partner of insurance companies. We believe in lasting relationships. Mr. Amir Uddin, the Chief Operating Officer of Prudential BSN Takaful in Malaysia, in a published interview in December 2020, said, significant changes to customer experience are preparing Pru BSN for Insurance 4.0, or the fourth industrial revolution. The company's journey along this tech-infused path has been assisted by its strategically chosen partners such as Accelerate. Excuse me. We worked with Accelerate since 2013, and Accelerate has and continues to be a key partner for us in building these digital journeys and facilities. This is what I meant by lasting relationships. According to the World Bank, the African industry currently holds a valuation of $68 billion as measured by gross written premiums. The insurance market was expected to grow prior to COVID pandemic at 7% per annum over the next 5 years. This projection placed African insurance markets growth at approximately twice the rate of North America, more than 3 times the rate of Europe, and slightly higher than Asia's 6% growth rate. Furthermore, although the pandemic has upended consumer and commercial discretionary expenditures, including insurance, the report posts that the pandemic will delay, not alter Africa's insurance growth pattern, as well as accelerate the shift towards digital platforms. Excuse me. Over the last few years, digital transformation has taken a grip of the industry and is rapidly taking shape. However, what is more exciting is the application of artificial intelligence in the industry. We at Accelerate have been researching this area for the last 4 years. However, we have not gathered here to talk about Accelerate, but to hear your opinion and what your experience is on the application of AI in the industry, so that we can collectively benefit from this discussion. With this, I'd like to introduce Shirish Pathak, who's been speaking even before me, who is the Managing Director of Fintellect Advisory Services in India. Fintellect has been in the forefront of financial services, initially insurance, and now more so in the domain of anti-money laundering and countering terrorist financing research, training, and advisory. Over the Shirish has successfully conducted roundtable discussions for us, and over to you, Shirish.
Thanks, Vivek. So Sandeep and Leroy, again, formally welcome to the roundtable. I think we also have Farai Dogo who's joined us. Farai, are you able to hear us?
Yes, Shirish, I'm able to hear you. Thank
Excellent.
you. I'm able to hear you. Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you.
Good morning, Farai. Excellent. If possible, it'll be great to have your camera on so that we can see you. But if there's a bandwidth issue, it's fine if you keep it off, right? So as Vivek mentioned, my name is Shirish, Indian a pleasure and honor for me to moderate the roundtable today and engage in discussion with you. Thank you, Axel Tree, for inviting me to moderate the session today. And thanks to all three of you, Sandeep, Leroy, and Farai, for joining the roundtable. So just a formal set of introductions, although I think you all know each other. Leroy is head of digital at APA Insurance. Farai, who's just joined in, is Chief Operating Officer of Britam Insurance, and Sandeep Vaduri, CEO of GA Insurance. So I think we have two life insurance companies and one general insurance company represented here. As and when some of the others we've invited come in, I will introduce them. Um, Now, as you also know, that in addition to Vivek, we've got Raj Swaminathan, who's advisor at Axel Tree, who's joined us. He's an industry veteran with decades of experience in business, technology, and operations, and I think he can bring to bear some of his comments during the discussion as well. So before we begin, let me just explain the flow of proceedings. It's obviously intended to be interactive. And as Vivek mentioned, we would like to really harness your opinions, your expectations, understanding, and experiences on the application of AI in the insurance industry, whether it is life or general. And we have overall four primary areas of discussion today. I will, ask each of you a question by rotation. But at any point of time, if you'd like to comment or speak, just raise your hand, or uh, there's a raise hand button on the Zoom panel, or just put up your hand and tell me. I'll come to you as soon as I can. Um, the session is also being recorded, which I hope is okay with you. And a link to the recording will be made available later by Pramod and Yogesh. And we'll also have a key takeaways white paper, which will be published after this is done. That will also be circulated. So let me first, touch upon the, maybe regulatory aspects. Several African governments are strengthening regulatory and capital requirements of insurance companies to ensure solvency and sustainability. Now, this is expected to help create stronger and larger companies, and also obviously boost job creation and capacity building. So, are there any regulatory concerns or directives in the region, maybe related to customer service, more pervasive distribution for financial inclusion, achieving better claims ratios, or better cost efficiencies, so that you can, eventually reduce premiums that are being seen as instrumental in considering the adoption of artificial intelligence? And if so, are there any indications that the regulator is pushing the adoption of AI? And if not, what are the other drivers that you see, that are pushing the interest or adoption of AI in the region? So maybe Leroy, if I can start with you, what would be your comment to this?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen, and I'm not working too closely with what not too familiar with what the regulators pushed out recently, but there is obviously a drive in terms of innovation in the space with the regulator promulgating a number of initiatives in support of that. But in terms of what's driving, adoption of innovation, that for me is primarily what, from an organizational point of view, to see how one can improve operations, specifically, whether it's fraud detection, whether it's claims processing, and other business process optimizations through the use of various types of AI technologies, including RPA. I think that the driver there is primarily efficiency and cost savings, and ultimately better customer service.
Thanks, Leroy. Sandeep, any comments on this particular question? What is your opinion on this?
Actually, from the regulators' point of view, they have been pushing TCF, that is treating customers fairly. So from last year, we are seeing regulators actually going to the remote branches and doing an audit by themselves in the area of TCF. So in fact, there is also a talk that, which is yet to be confirmed, that regulator is also pushing for a regulatory legislation which will make mandatory for all insurance companies to settle claims within 30 days. Now, when this comes into picture, actually technology, especially when we are talking about products for mass consumption, then technology becomes a very important element and interface in actually not only acquiring the customers, but to finding the customers back to deliver the claim. So that's where I think so presently the regulation says it is actually TCF guidelines. It is not actually a regulation, which regulators are trying to push. So once it becomes a part of legislation itself, then actually I think the game will change a little bit.
Right. Farai, what's your opinion on this? Are you seeing any regulatory drivers or any other business drivers that are leading to adoption of AI in the region?
Thank you, Shirish. For me, I think basically there are a number of issues, but my colleagues have actually addressed majority of them. What I wanted to add on is to look at the untapped market, where we are basically saying we also need to look at the penetration level of insurance. We know in Africa, the penetration level is actually low. So the regulators are also pushing in that insurers should come up with products and technology which address and reach to the underprivileged or those people who do not have insurance. In addition to the issue of treating customers fairly, they are actually seeking that at any point in time, the insuring public should have visibility, especially on claims, at which level or at which stages the claim is at, so that the clients, they do have that visibility and they know at any point in time where the claim is, but more importantly, on the issue of driving the penetration level. Thank you.
Thanks, Farai. Okay, we also thought we will do some quick polls within the roundtable discussion to just get answers to some sort of multiple choice type of questions. So Yogesh, maybe if you can just run one of the polls. So this says, what are the top 3 functions in an insurance carrier that you believe would be most impacted by AI over the next 3 years? So we'll keep this on for a few seconds until you answer and submit. All right. So have you all finished answering the poll? Can we go on to the next question?
Just 1 second, Shirish. I just wanted to follow up on this on the regulation question and challenge that you posed. In some of the markets that we have seen, notably one of the markets, I mean, India is clearly an area where we have some deeper knowledge. The regulators have been pushing to try and step up on the persistency ratio. How important is that in your markets, and is that a focus area for you all, both in terms of customer acquisition and then in terms of retention of your customers, monitoring of persistency ratio and how AI can probably help? Sandeep, is that an area of concern for you all, or is that a question mark, or is that not an issue as much?
Yeah, as far as but GA is concerned, but the persistency ratio, what you are talking about, is primarily applicable in life insurance, where they actually continue to pay a part of premium throughout the tenure of the policy. So in GI, what we actually track is our renewable, what is our retention basically. So how many of my existing clients are renewing their policy or taking up, because in GI everything is 1 year. So basically the concept of continuous policy does not exist. So every year it's a new contract. So what we track is how much of our existing customers we are retaining. So in as far as GA is concerned, we have a very high retention ratio. It's more than 85%. So What actually actually the issue is in terms of regulation, there is no as such that means area which actually calls in especially with GI. I'm not talking about life insurance, which actually talks about the retention ratio. But from a company perspective, okay, it's cheaper to retain a client than acquire a new client. So from an acquisition cost point of view, we always focus on the retention.
Sure. Leroy and Farai, any views on that, on persistency?
For me to respond to the same, it's not driven by the regulator, but it's something which is driven within the organization. The issue of persistency, we are also in general insurance. So basically, we look at the renewal retention is also a key performance indicator, as highlighted by my colleague that yes, it's cheaper to retain the business than look for new business. So I would say we are also sitting around 85% in terms of renewal retention. But what we look at consistency or persistency in terms of renewal retention, both at policy count and also at client level. Thank you.
Hi, yeah. Just to add, I'm also from the general insurance side. And yeah, pretty much the same as what my colleagues mentioned around retention. The policies are renewable annually, and that's also a key driver and a focus for us to ensure that we increase actually our level of retention, I think, which is also sitting at the moment around the low 80%. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think one of the things is that, like with the Britam, is they have a very big portfolio of micro insurance. So I think if Farai can say what kind of actually technology interventions they're making, because in segments which is of mass consumption, retention is a very big issue, because it's sometimes it's very difficult to trace the customer back itself. The cost of tracing the customer is as high as the cost of the policy. The admin cost is very high.
To touch on that, we do have a number of schemes which we look at. So the schemes, they are driven, the persistence is driven by the schemes. So the moment we retain those schemes, then we are guaranteed that we are in a position to renew or continue to service those particular customers. So for micro, actually, it's being handled at scheme level. And the edge for us is also getting into individuals. But it's more driven at group level, that is at schemes, at company levels, where they'll be having a number of individuals who fall under those particular schemes. Thank you.
So basically you are saying because of the level of aggregation which happens at a certain level, so that's actually, basically what do you say? Basically ensures that you have a high level of retention on those kind of schemes.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Right. All right. So, as Vivek mentioned in his opening remarks, there is a significant opportunity for growth in the insurance sector in Africa, despite the pandemic, or, maybe in a way because of it, because, the region has received a fillip because of a higher uptake in digital banking and payments. And this is also enabling customers to transact online more and more. At the same time, as we were speaking, just a few minutes back, there's been a flurry of insurtech activity. Insurtech firms have got into the fray and started competing with traditional insurers. And AI is already being used substantially, I believe, in the non-life insurance sector. For example, to service the first notice of claims in simple low-end claim settlement within a few minutes using bots. So given this backdrop, how differently do you think AI can or should be used in the life insurance sector? And what are the expectations you would have from the deployment of AI solutions for specific functions or departments, whether it's distribution, underwriting, claims, operations, or any other department? So maybe if I can first ask Leroy or Farai to speak from the life insurance side, and maybe Sandeep from the general insurance side. Farai, would you like to comment on that? You're on mute.
Yeah, on the general, boss, I don't have much exposure on the life insurance side. My area of concentration is basically the general insurance. So I'll basically touch on the issue of claims processing, which we use artificial intelligence in a number of ways. We do have a quite significant book in terms of our health or medical insurance. So we use robotics to process some of our claims in an effort to drive the issue of efficiency and turnaround time, especially with our service providers, mainly the hospitals. So yes, we do use robotics as part of our claims processing, and this has also necessitated or helped us to service our service providers more efficiently and timeless. That is the hospitals.
Thanks, Farai. Leroy, your comments on this?
Yes, thanks. So also on the general side, what we've been looking and experimenting with for some time now is also robotic process automation from an AI side, and where we're using this as well as in our back office, not just for claims processing and handling, but also for onboarding of schemes and finding ways to ensure that we can onboard our big customers timelessly and provide a quick turnaround time on that.
Right. So how would you suppose it should be used on the life insurance side? Any thoughts on that? So
primarily, I've just been on the general side, so a bit difficult to comment at this point. But since also we haven't really ventured on the live side as well in terms of AI.
All right. Sandeep, any comment on this point?
No, we in our company, we are actually undertaking a major upgradation of our IT infrastructure. Post that, actually, we are trying to, that means one or two solutions which we are trying to integrate with our core system is on the underwriting portion. Suppose, you have a marine policy, and basically when you have a marine policy, you have to issue, as per the local regulations, marine certificates on each and every transaction that you undertake. Now, basically, when you see a marine certificate, it basically has nothing, and the most of the information which is done manually is very much duplicated. So we are trying to see if that can be done like using a robotic automation system, wherein then other things which we would like to see and which we are trying is that if I want to insure a house now, typically residential complexes, in Western world, they are very much commoditized. In our part of the world, we still do a manual or a desktop underwriting of those. So how can we enable the client or the broker or the intermediary to do their own underwriting under set parameters? So basically, if you have a house, you can take a mobile phone, you can use the camera of the mobile phone, take a picture of the house or take a video. Then you have an optical recognition technology, which actually pulls up most of the underwriting information, feeds it to an underwriting engine and develops a quote. So these are some of the things I'm giving away, but these are some of the things as a company we are looking at.
Right. All right. So let's move the discussion on maybe learning from the digital side. So many insurance companies have actually already successfully moved to a digital business model. Do you think there are any lessons that we can learn from digital transformation initiatives? For example, service redesign or realignment or acquisition of new talent, or building a new mindset in the company. Do you think or what do you think should be considered really when embarking on an AI initiative? Sandeep, do you want to go first?
Okay, one of the things you see, I have is even before taking any kind of digital transformation, there has to be actually in terms of L&D in the company, there has to be a major transformation. Now, one of the things I think which Farai will agree with me, the quality of underwriting which we see in this market is not actually what we can consider as world class. something. Now this is behind the fact, if you go to, I'm quite sure if you go to any big insurance company, or even if you go to Insurance Institute of Kenya or any of the reinsurance company, you see they have actually on an average, a company undertakes 200 to 300 actually training programs a year. Now the things like, and this is actually this is an ongoing process. Almost every year you will find insurance companies investing heavily on training. Now the quality of underwriting in spite of this, so there is any kind of like in our company we are actually working on that space from a HR point of view, how to get agile thinking, how to get to start with system thinking, how to get system thinking into the culture of the company. And you have to understand that most of the companies, including big companies like Britam and APA, they're very traditional companies. They had been run in a different way. And most of the companies are now undergoing transformation, including ours. So the focus is on getting the type of thinking into the culture, and then actually the uptake of it. Because what we have seen that in our previous experience, that you introduce a kind of technology even at the intermediary level or at the user level inside the company, the uptake is very low because people simply do not want to use it. So last year we launched a COVID-specific product where we were the first company in entire East Africa, I think in entire African continent, to launch a COVID-specific product, which later Britam also launched, I think this year. They basically copied it from us. So word by word. This product was supposed to be sold actually purely digital on a digital basis. So the pricing of the product was made in such a way so that because it is supposed to be sold digitally and serviced digitally, the administration cost was also thought to be in that way. But what we found that uptake in the market, the mindset of using a digital product is still not there, both at the user level and at the consumer level and at the intermediary level. So there is a great shift which needs to be done in terms of agile thinking well within the company, which can trickle down to the intermediary level and then to the consumer level actually. That's why in my opening comments, I made that in terms of InsurTech, the market is not yet mature. So in my personal opinion, there is a great deal of market shaping which needs to be done so that we can reach an inflection point, maybe 3 to 4 years down the line, actually.
Right. Actually, Sandeep, you brought a very interesting point where you said your L&D efforts is an important effort within the company, but as important is educating your customers going digital and in absorbing digital technology. Is that a bigger challenge?
I'll tell you, yes. The reason it's a chicken and an egg situation, because agile thinking has to be embedded at the employee level. Then only it can trickle down. Now, typically we have issues now in we issue like motor certificates digitally, we issue aviation certificates digitally. Now the brokers or the intermediate, you see, in Kenya, in general insurance, the primary mode of doing business is through actually intermediaries. So as high as, I think my top companies, as high as I think 70 to 80% of the business is sourced through intermediaries. So sometimes what you do is that one of the things to get the certificate being digital is like you enable your intermediaries so that there's agility in the entire work stream, so that they can issue the certificates faster at their own end, and the client is serviced faster basically. And that brings in a huge amount of efficiency. But you see, you'll still find intermediaries calling back and asking us to issue the digital certificates on their behalf. So I'm not so sure if Farai and Leroy has the same experience as we have. So they may have a different experience.
Right. So Farai, what is your, obviously you may want to respond to Sandeep's point about, Britam copying everything that GA has done. But
no, not everything. That's only for one particular product.
Right. But
Farai has got a different charge on Sandeep.
So Farai, what are your thoughts on learning from the digital model? I mean, is there any comment you have on that?
Thank you. The other issue I would discuss with Sandeep outside this meeting.
he's going to meet you in the town square.
Yeah, true. But right, for me, I wanted to make a few comments with regards to the issue of this technology, where we are saying we also want to drive our revenues through technology. Yes, the uptake it has been very slow, but it will take a lot of energy, take a lot of effort for the industry at large to ensure that we bring awareness to the insuring public. But for me, where I see this growth or potential is actually on the personal lines business, where basically we can transact the insurance through the digital platform, because it's one area which intermediaries, they don't have much control over. Most of the intermediaries, they want to target the small to medium and corporate accounts. But for the personal lines, I see an opportunity for the digital platform where insurance can deal direct with the insuring public. So the products which I would also want to mention here, where we see opportunities, is basically on the personal lines. That is the home comprehensive, the personal accident, the professional indemnity for doctors, because it's also a legal requirement that each and every doctor who is actually operating in our jurisdiction must have professional indemnity insurance. So yes, the data, in terms of data, it may not be there, but we'll start from somewhere where we can also say we want to drive the issue of data analytics, whereby it will help us to do our pricing, it will help us to come up with products which meet the requirements or the needs of our customers.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Leroy, do you have any comment on this?
Apologies, I had a momentary drop in connection.
No
what was the question?
So, Leroy, the question was that many insurance companies have already successfully moved to a digital business model. Are there any lessons that companies can learn from their digital transformation initiatives, whether it is service redesign or realignment of talent in the company or mindsets of people that should be considered when you actually embark on a new AI initiative?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Okay, now it makes also sense when I hear what my colleagues had said in relation to the question. Yeah, so I think there are quite a number of points perhaps to mention there. Digital transformation typically is quite hard under the best of circumstances. Everybody's trying to understand and grapple with it, and the change and the technology that's available is quite rapid. There's a temptation to always do a big bang approach, which I think sometimes can be a bit dangerous. And there's the road of digital transformation is littered with coffins of organizations that have gone sort of big bang. And so personally, what I advocate for is small, low-hanging fruit changes that one could do to implement and then use the momentum to build from there. Secondly, what's also quite important is a big cultural change. And so one cannot really talk about digital transformation if culturally the organization, and that goes right from the leadership all the way down, but particularly within the leadership space, people are aligned to what this new way of work, a new way of business actually means. Then, if and I think it was Sandeep who spoke about employees also being taken on that journey. So there's a mind shift change that has to happen, led by the leadership, and then working with employees to try and do that, and also drive innovation, because sometimes some of the best ideas come from employees, and it's to tap into them and unlock them, and then run the necessary experiments to make sure that you hit the sweet spot as far as aligning to company goals are concerned. On the ground, last year we launched our happiness app in the market, and it took off quite well. But I think what's important is, and I think insurance, to sell insurance, and is quite hard generally, because it's seen as a grudge purchase, and so it's important to find a good mix or sweet spot in terms of how one presents, the sales opportunity as well as the messaging to the customer, so that they buy into it. And so what we've seen is, we've learned some great lessons in terms of the app and the customer usage that came from it, and the convenience that it offered for them. But the biggest benefit that we saw was on the side of our intermediaries. And I think Sandeep mentioned that as well. I think 70%, 80% of business coming from insurance business within Kenya is driven primarily by your intermediaries. And so the trick, I guess, is to say, well, when you're going to be investing, who are you primarily going after? Whose life are you looking to change? Would that be your intermediaries, and try and help them to be a lot more productive, help them to succeed in managing their portfolios and their businesses, especially as it comes to dealing with your organization, and then go after the direct line on the personal lines, as Farai mentioned, as a secondary objective. Of course, once you do go direct and you start pursuing your direct business, then there's also the angst that comes from the intermediary and the agent space, where they now feel like you're now going after their customers. So it's a fine balance in terms of how you proceed and how you progress with your digital transformation, bearing in mind the multiple stakeholders, their own interests, trying to align it to yours. And I'm from South Africa originally, and I know that one of the big insurers there a couple of years ago had also tried to go with a digital direct business model, which sustained for a while, but eventually folded. And it's and I think it's very difficult to get right. You have to get your agents on board, because you start alienating them. That's probably 70% of your business gone. So it's a fine line, but I think generally from what we've seen, if you present the solution to the problem of the customer in the right way, you definitely get some buy-in, and I think that's what we've seen on the agent side.
Thanks, Leroy.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful statement that Leroy made. Who is your customer? Is it the agent, or is it the agent's customer? And where is the solution actually being targeted?
Absolutely. Okay, Yogesh, on that note, before I move to the final question theme, should we just run one more quick poll? Yeah. All right. I think Leroy has already answered this in his speech.
And I think more or less,
it is more appropriate.
I agree to what Leroy has said. Any big bang, revolution always leads to anarchy. So the change has to be always incremental.
Oh man, I like that quote, Sandeep. Can I steal it? Can I borrow it?
yeah, please.
Revolution leads to anarchy. So true.
Even if we go back to history, I think other than American Revolution, no revolution has ever succeeded.
That's true.
Maybe the French Revolution.
The French Revolution did not succeed because Napoleon became the emperor of France, which became a monarchy rather than a republic.
Good one.
Right.
Very true.
All right. So let me just move to the final question.
So before that, just when we looked at our other customers, some of them do think that when they want to implement, especially AI project, it has to be big bang, right? And obviously, most of us know that it doesn't work that way, correct? But I think the lure of doing something big is too much. That's what I thought. So I requested Shirish to have this kind of poll. Yeah, but thanks.
Right. Okay, moving to a slightly, I know, all of you are business guys, but I thought let me ask you a quick tech question. We need a lot of historical data for AI modeling, and that is typically a bottleneck sometimes. And in the same vein, there's also an apprehensiveness in insurance companies to share this data with the technology provider sometimes. So do you see this as a major issue? And if so, what do you think is a way out here? Sandeep, do you want to take that first?
So I think data sharing definitely is a major issue, and in insurance specifically, where one deals with very personal information, whether it's on the health side, or even on the the general motor side, etc. What we've seen and tried with some vendors is around sort of scrambling the data. But then depending on what you scramble, then you could lose your effectiveness in terms of what the objective of what you're trying to analyze through your data. I think another complication that potentially that adds to that is the introduction of DPA within the Kenyan market. And what organizations do, and if they've outlined specifically in terms of their terms and privacy policies to customers as to how data objects data will be processed and where it will be processed. And I think that is another issue. So in sharing that information with a third-party provider, even if at an organizational level you feel like you've sufficiently protected yourself, with the provider, you might still come under scrutiny from the regulator, because that your action, in fact, might not be in line with the act.
Right, Sandeep, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would build upon what Leroy has already said. Leroy has said that there are two aspects to it. In terms of an artificial intelligence on any application to work well, it sits on the top of machine learning. Now you need to have a continuous flow of data stream actually going into the machine learning software to determine certain patterns and from which actually the artificial intelligence works. So that is definitely a challenge in this market in terms of our legacy data, the way it has been formatted, and where you can make it actionable. That is a big challenge over there. Now, even if I actually get in a very intelligent system, it's very difficult for us, and it's a big challenge in this market to migrate the old legacy data into the new system so that the system can actually generate some kind of a pattern or intelligence and work and give certain outcomes. So that is number one. That is a big issue. Number two, what Leroy has told in terms of Data Protection Act, which is now enforced. There are two things in Data Protection Act. Number one, two things. In terms of data has been classified into two levels. One is uniquely identifiable personal information, while other is uniquely identifiable health information. Now, the other part is how are you hosting the data? Now, the thing, any data transfer or handing over the data is subject to consent of the client. Now, consent is a very big issue as far as data protection law is concerned. So even if you have your data protection policy wherein you say that you can use your data for sales, marketing, and other analytical purpose, then handing over the data to an external party. Even if you want to run an application, suppose if you're running an application on a cloud, so how are you going to handle this data? Now, if a client again asks the insurance company, they want you to delete the data, or they want a comprehensive report how his data is being used, or then actually it becomes a very big issue. Now, it is a very emerging area. We still do not know the implications in terms of the entire thing. Now, again, when you are interfacing with multiple platforms, both abroad and in the country, then the question of, again, the cybersecurity comes in. So what kind of transactions you would want to undertake, what kind of transaction may lead to a breach, and breach has got very high liabilities in this country, because the entire Data Protection Act is actually modeled on the lines of GDPR in Europe. Leroy may correct me if he may back me up on this.
That's
and then there is the vendor compliance. How much the vendor is compliant with the Office of Data Protection in Kenya. So these are various things which are very emerging issues. So it is still we are still in a state of flux. So for any company asking, suppose if we want to collaborate with any international company in terms of product development, that needs analysis of the data. So it's very difficult for us to actually embark on that path.
Right. Farai, your comments on this question?
Thank you, Shirish. I think Leroy and Sandeep, they've captured it well. It's an emerging area indeed, and it has got its own risks. So it's not one aspect which is easy to handle, where you can share your data with external parties, because now there's need for consent from our clients, that they need to agree to how the data is going to be used. So as a company, you may not have control how the third party is going to use that particular data. So what I can only mention for now is there are risks which are tied to the same, and the levels of liability could be quite huge. So I think there's a lot of training and awareness which is also happening in our market, and there are a lot of engagements, I think, with the regulator and other authorities to address the issue of data protection and data privacy. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Before I move the discussion to Raj, I would like to invite you to do a quick wrap up and what we learned from this discussion. But before that, Yogesh, maybe if you can just quickly run one more poll question.
Is it visible?
All right. So what are the top 3 parameters that you would consider when engaging with a potential AI solution supplier? All right. Are we done with the poll?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Excellent. So with that, I'm at the end of the questions which I, wanted to ask for the purpose of the discussion. But I think it has been very, very interesting to get this view from the 3 of you. Before we close, Raj, may I request you to say a few words, maybe a few takeaways, and also a word of thanks.
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me?
And also, Raj,
Yes.
before that, now that we have Pramod's visible as well, maybe this is a good time to take a quick online group photo, which I'm doing right now. So smile, everyone. Great. Okay. Raj, continue.
Well, great. Thank you all so much for participating in this discussion. I think we touched upon some of the key areas that has been plaguing us and been plaguing the industry. One around what is the regulatory push and regulatory concerns about implementing of AI? What is the learnings from our digital transformation efforts? What are the data challenges? And what are the areas of products, life insurance and general insurance that make the most sense? I think we got some really great insights, both from all of you all on both general insurance largely, but even from similar parallels of the life insurance. Now, from our perspective, one of the things that we as technology providers have always been looking at is, here is a solution, and we are going around hunting for problems to solve. But what really impacts us is, that enables us is the significant improvements in architecture, our ability to handle very large volumes of data now, and improvement in compute capabilities with the advent of cloud, etc. Having said that, now the question is, as one of my industry friends and senior colleagues from India in the insurance sector once said, AI is a science, but customer centricity and customer engagement is an art. And how does AI and customer centricity combine together to enable us to fulfill the needs of the business and the expectations of our customers in a truly blended fashion. And I think all of you all offered some great insights to enable that happen. To just try and bring this together, I think some of the points that I'm sort of picking up a framework that I understood around AI implementation. I think you all covered almost every one of them. True typical AI implementation framework talks about the need for constant senior management, executive, and business leadership support. And the reason why it insists, and I think you all brought it up very effectively, even from the digital transformation examples, was, and more so in AI, because a lot of AI examples change the way we work. And I think Leroy mentioned about the change the way the work happens. A lot of the human elements change forever. And that requires constant amount of senior leadership support, because this is a very disruptive change. The other thing is expectations on what are the business outcomes that are expected, what is the return on investment and the payback that is expected. And there, I think we talked about efficiency opportunities, we talked about effectiveness opportunities, we talked about fraud prevention, we talk about revenue leakages, and we talk about, when you talk of customer acquisition, we talk about maybe recommendation engines or cross-sell opportunities. We talk about recommendation engines. There are obviously best practices that you can pick up from the retail sector, etc., or probably from Netflix in terms of saying, what kind of products does the customer want? What kind of movies does he want to see? What are the other kinds of products that can be sold, upsold, cross-sold, etc.? But the big challenge that was highlighted probably towards the end was the need for solid data governance. That's probably an important ask for us as IT vendors, as technology vendors, that we have to fulfill in terms of saying, how do we present, first of all, is your data, is your legacy data, that was, I think, a point that was highlighted, and your data strategy and application strategy, are they coming together to provide a largely single view of the customer, which is probably very important to get a detailed kind of actionable insights. And then comes your security layer, which I think was talked about both from cybersecurity angle as well as from the regulatory oversight in terms of data privacy and data confidentiality. And then comes the whole ethical question, especially when you're talking about healthcare and stuff like that, as to what is private to the individual and what is actually the need for data to be able to act upon it. That's an important one. And then comes the question of standards, whether it's application standards, interoperability standards, how do applications talk to each other to provide a wholesome view of the customer. But these are probably key elements in order to make an AI implementation. Another strategy when we talked about incremental versus big bang is the question, especially in AI, how do you make small experiments, learn from those experiments, or learn from the failures of those experiments, and then constantly go bigger and evolve. If not into a full big bang, AI is never about a full big bang, but constantly provide the icing in the cake over a digital transformation effort. And the other stuff, AI is not for AI's sake. I mean, one of my favorite words, I think, that I read somewhere was, today hardware is enabled, software capabilities are increased, but the big challenge for business leaders like you is really to find out what I call the nowhere. Nowhere is the area where AI can probably deliver the most value, most significant capabilities. So I think all of these were touched upon fabulously. Each one of you all, you have brought in some significant insights in terms of learning from the digital experience, how transforming your own workforce is a significant challenge. But more importantly, market shaping, as somebody said, is a key task, because your customers have got to become technology literate and got to appreciate working with chatbots, working with, as you move from descriptive, diagnostic, predictive to prescriptive kind of tools in analytics and AI, that clearly becomes a big challenge and a big ask. So thank you all for your wonderful insights over 4 broad areas of discussion today. And we certainly gained a lot of inputs from you all. Africa is certainly a key market for us. And of course, as I mentioned to some of you all early on, it's an area of my regular haunt and travels in the past. I look forward to traveling there more often alongside Pramod and meeting up with you all. Thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah, sure. Just to add, Raj, I mean, I already personally met, Farai is a fantastic person. We really had a long discussion. Never get chance to meet Sandeep, but I met Mr. Kaushal Kumar and Sandeep Waghela during my last visit to GA Insurance. And I look forward, to meet Leroy, during my next visit. So really thankful, all of you to join this, event. And sorry for multiple reminders and emails. I can understand, I have sent you a lot of emails and a lot of reminders for that. So thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Looking forward to see you in Nairobi soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And inviting you all to India soon.
Sure, we'll definitely make a visit. Thank you.
Sure. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Shirish. Thanks a lot.